nas margens plácidas de povo herói quebrado retumbante. E o sol da liberdade em raios fúlgidos brilhou no céu da pátria nesse instante. Se o penhor dessa igualdade conseguimos conquistar com braço forte em teu seio, ó liberdade, desafia o nosso peito à própria morte. Ó pátria amada, idolatrada, salve, salve. Brasil, um sonho intenso, um raio vívido de amor e de esperança, a terra desce. Sem teu formoso céu, sonho límpido, a imagem do cruzeiro resplandece, gigante pela própria natureza. És bela, és forte, impávido gosto, e o teu futuro espelha essa grandeza. Terra dourada, entre outras mil, és tu, Brasil, ó pátria amada dos filhos desse sol, és mãe gentil, pátria amada, Brasil.
There we go, Brazilian national anthem. Carlos, quick one. He's just making his way. Carlos Sainz making his way off the grid. I wonder if we can just have a quick conversation. Daniel, Penny, for your thoughts at the moment. What's possible today?
Obrigado.
Obrigado, is that it? What's the aim today?
Points and fun.
We'll let you go and have it then, shall we?
Obrigado.
Okay, and obrigado. All right, obrigado. Now let's hear from Max Verstappen talking to Rachel.
Max, have the team told you still got an opportunity to win today?
I mean, yeah, the opportunity is always there, but yesterday was not good. We can't really change that.
What is up, everybody?
Weekend,
I
so
think
it's
my
gonna be
fog
a
machine is
race.
once again broken.
But yeah, we'll try to learn a bit with the tires and
Yes,
see
it
what we're
is.
gonna be.
Starts vitally important as they are at every Grand Prix. Let's head to Karun.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Uniquely on a sprint weekend, of course, we only have to look back 24 hours, not to previous seasons, to analyse some starts. Max Verstappen on the left, George Russell on the right from yesterday. George got a better launch, and I think what's important to note is on the clean side of the grid, on the right-hand side there, the track, that is the racing line. So the drivers on the right-hand side, A, have got a cleaner track. B, they're going to be in the shadow of the grandstand. And the track temperature, I'm told, between the left and the right is actually quite a big difference of 6 or 7 degrees. So that's
How's everybody doing today?
when they got down to turn
Yes,
one,
we're watching
George
F1.
But Max had the inside line. Kevin Magnussen in the Haas in front had a nice clean run, and he was able to pull away. So they played nicely through turn one. Further back, though, the two Alpines, they were starting 5th and 6th yesterday. Again, worth remembering, by the way, they are starting together again, 16th and 17th for the Grand Prix. Riding on board with Fernando Alonso. So heading down there, Alonso didn't get a great start, despite being on the cleaner side. But he went for the run around the outside, had a bit of a lock up there, nearly made contact. Watch how close they get, even at turn two. Look at the two tyres there, incredibly close. As they go around turn three, heading down towards turn four. This was the first big controversial moment when they get down to turn four. Alonso went for the move around the outside, but Ocon didn't give him room, squeezed him on the exit curve, and they nearly came to blows then. They did come to blows later in the lap. So lots to watch out for, not just into turn one, but also turn four. Rachel, I believe you are with George Russell.
George, how are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. It's very tricky to know what the right strategy is going to be. Obviously, the medium on Max yesterday looked really, really poor, but we're all going to have to run it at some point. So, do you run at the start, at the end, in the middle? I don't really know, but time will tell.
Red Bull are concerned they don't have the pace to match you on the softs. Could that be key today?
I think it doesn't matter what strategy you're on. If we've got the pace that we showed yesterday, we've got the chance to win the race. So most important thing is just drive as fast as possible. Thank you.
Well, that's a good one. It always helps George, and that's actually the man who's going to decide the strategy with George. George was talking to Rachel a second ago, but that's Riccardo Mosconi, his engineer, on the left-hand side. Now, you might have seen, if you watched the sprint, there was a discussion about whether the drivers weren't properly in their grid box. It was actually side to side, and what they've done now to avoid any confusion is actually spray painted out the white lines either side of everybody's grid box. So that will avoid anything from happening again. So George, first on the road, not his first pole position, had that in Hungary, and then Max right behind him, Simon.
Just very quickly, Damon, these warmer temperatures, do you think that they sway towards Red Bull to start if it cools off back towards Mercedes?
I would think that Red Bull are hoping the track doesn't cool off. I think they're looking, they feel better on a hot track. That's what they're hoping for anyway.
Well, they were getting front grading, weren't they? That's the thing.
Yeah, but that's because they couldn't get it up to working temperature. You get better hot rear tyres, and then the fronts just push on. So basically, you'll get more rear dig if it's a hotter track. That might bring it into balance.
Expected to be clean between the Mercedes drivers? That's what they said.
I do. I think they have a lot of respect for each other. They're wise enough to know, to respect each other. But I do think that they'll make any move that they can on each other.
Saying they're working together for a 1-2, but that man would love first Grand Prix
It's not an exact science, this. It's going to be an absolutely free-for-all. In my view, this is going to be a great race.
Okay, sun is shining at the moment. There are a few clouds bubbling up and overhead as George and the rest of the drivers make their final preparations. The Sao Paulo Grand Prix is next.
You've made some upgrades to make home feel more like home. Upgraded how you work, how you play, how you movie night. Verizon Fios Gigabit Connection powers tons of devices at once and is our fastest internet available. Upgrade all your upgrades. Get whole home Wi-Fi with Gigabit Connection at verizon.com/myverizon.
Helping families through difficult times has been my family's passion for over 100 years. I'm so proud to see my son and grandson continue serving Central New York families.
Providing funeral and cremation services, we will continue to work within your budget. We will create the perfect celebration of your loved one's life. I am honored to be the 5th generation of Puros, being taught to always go above and beyond families' expectations. Thomas J. Puro Jr. Funeral Home. We treat you like a member of our family.
What did you expect? Did you think you could relax? Or had you convinced yourself some records were forever? That you'd seen everything there was to see? Or have you realized you can't look away and you don't know the future and that the game has never been better? That is hockey.
Formula One coverage on ESPN is presented exclusively by Mother's Polish.
This is SportsCenter.
Hi there, Hannah Storm and Jay Harris with you. Our coverage of the Brazilian Grand Prix continues on ABC. Here on ESPN2, we are taking you up to the CFL East Division Final between Montreal and Toronto.
And Week 10 in the NFL continues. We have a new sports phrase. Apparently, it's not day-to-day anymore, Jay. No, that's so passé.
It is.
It's hour to hour. That is courtesy of Bills head coach Sean McDermott. That is how he described the status of his quarterback, Josh Allen, in advance of the Bills game against the Vikings. Our Adam Schefter reporting that the Bills quarterback will be active today and will likely start against Minnesota. Allen suffered a UCL injury when his arm was bent backward awkwardly last week against the Jets. There's more from Adam.
Josh Allen is slated to be active, and the Buffalo Bills spent a lot of time this week meeting with their doctors.
All right. We hope you enjoy your trip, and we wish you well on your journey.
Thank you, Jack.
How about Jack Nicklaus was just on the phone with you?
How about that, dude?
Oh my God. He's wow. That's awesome.
special thank you to the Navy and especially everyone aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln for the hospitality, but also for showing us exactly what goes into defending our freedoms both home and abroad. I'm Michael Lees. Thanks for joining us for this salute to veterans.
This is ESPN on ABC. Formula One coverage on ESPN is presented exclusively by Mother's Polish.
There's always something special about heading to Interlagos, and that's where we are for the penultimate round of the Formula One season in 2022. It's the Sao Paulo Grand Prix around this 2.67-mile circuit. It's the 39th time we've come here to Interlagos, where somebody's flicked on a switch this afternoon, and the atmosphere absolutely electric in the crowd. The fans packing the grandstands have been chanting for their heroes since we got here to the track at about 9 o'clock this morning. 2 DRS zones to try and help some overtaking. Plenty of chances for overtaking. 37 passes yesterday in the sprint race that lasted just 24 laps. Today we've got a 71-lap Grand Prix, and into the centre S's, well, that's always a favourite place. Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon duelling as the track drops down in last year's race. Let's go down to Destino del Lago. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, one of the iconic moments, wasn't it, of last year's championship battle. Hamilton missing out on that occasion. He would, of course, get Max Verstappen a little later on. And in the opening skirmishes, you've got to be careful, and you've got to try and avoid lots of cars on that tricky, tight infield sector where the moves and the corners just keep coming and coming. Now, what's the best tyre for this afternoon? Warmer conditions than yesterday, an earlier starting time too. Is it the soft tyre that's the best at the start? Is it the medium tyre that's the best?
What is up, Daniel? How you doing?
A two-stop race. So this is how they line up then for the 2022 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And Yuki Tsunoda's changed his floor and his rear wing and his front wing, and he starts from the pit lane. Alex Albon, the only DNF in the sprint, starts 19th. Ahead of those, Nicholas Latifi in 18th and Fernando Alonso 17th, with his teammate Esteban Ocon just ahead of him. His car caught fire at the end of the sprint. They've changed the engine, no penalty for it. Lance Stroll took a 10-second penalty and starts 15th. Valtteri Bottas 14th, alongside his teammate Zhou Guanyu at Alfa Romeo. Mick Schumacher picks up 8 places in the sprint. He starts 12th, alongside Daniel Ricciardo, 11th on the grid for the 3rd time in 4 races. Pierre Gasly, top 10 for the first time since Singapore. Sebastian Vettel equals his best start of the season in 9th. Kevin Magnussen's the pole sitter this weekend. He won qualifying, starts 8th here today though. Carlos Sainz, a 5-place grid penalty for a new engine. The birthday boy Lando Norris is 6th, alongside Charles Leclerc, who's 5th for Ferrari. Sergio Perez, 4th on the grid here for the 2nd year in a row. Max Verstappen starts 3rd. He's won his last 2 races from there. Lewis Hamilton on the front row for the first time this season, and George Russell in P1 for the 2nd time in his career. It is a Mercedes front row lockout for the first time this season. Martin Brundle, who will get the strategy right though, because the Red Bulls seem to have gone one way, the Mercedes seem to have gone the other way in terms of tyres they've saved up.
In terms of tyres they've saved up, but not what they're starting the Grand Prix on. So both Mercedes and both Red Bulls are starting on soft tyres.
You're starting
both
them
Ferraris
engines.
are going for the medium compound tyres, and quite a mixture until you get to Alex Albon at the back on the hard compound tyres. So all 3 of them are out there, and of course they start today's race with 100 kilograms plus of fuel on board. Yesterday just 30 kilos, so that's like having an extra passenger with you, and that makes a big difference when you're braking down from 200 miles an hour, 320 kilometers per hour, and cornering at 150 miles an hour. that extra mass makes a difference, and you've already alluded to the track temperature being much higher than yesterday. It's 1.5 hours earlier, so a lot of great unknowns in that respect. Nobody really dramatically out of position on the grid in terms of their car performance, apart from, I would say, Ocon and Alonso in the Alpines, down in 16th and 17th, and there's confirmation that the yellow marked tyres on the Ferrari and the soft red marked tyres, brand spanking new, and Max Verstappen is the only
All right, here we go.
That's got 2 sets of new tyres, and they're uncured. They've got more grip, and you've got to be a little bit more careful with them, but they will give you grip all the way through that stint.
Yeah, and an advantage in terms of pace for the first 2 or 3 laps as well. It's a 71-lap race, Martin. We're heading off on the formation lap.
Oh yeah, they got to do the formation lap first.
The start here, the opening skirmishes.
I sometimes forget how F1
It's a
works.
place you can overtake. So what does George Russell do today? What does Lewis Hamilton do today? Because Mercedes have not been in this position all season long. How do they protect that advantage whilst doing the best for themselves?
Well, they'll surely have a plan if they turn up in formation as they leave the grid. They can't do too much after you, sir, because I think Max Verstappen will be pouncing, and not to rule out Sergio Perez either behind them. So they'll have to...
Oh, yep, I already see smoke
keep
grenades.
the flow going, keep the speed up through the first corner without getting in each other's way at Mercedes, and then sort it out later on in the race, and even later on in that lap. So I'm sure they've discussed it, because they know that Max will be on the attack.
It's only a short lap here, and as you can see, Russell and Hamilton, Verstappen and Perez already making their way around Vico de Pato, turn 10. As we say that, the stragglers, as it were, Alex Albon, just going through the Curva de Sol, turn 3, they were very slow, some of them, getting away from the grid, which means those at the front might have to spend a bit more time than they want, sat, waiting to get things going.
Yeah, it's back to pack up now, but they also want to get away and keep the temperature up in the brakes, the tyre temperature's up, therefore the tyre pressures are right as well. And as the snake begins to close up, it's an odd grid, we talked about it yesterday, where the front 2/3 of the grid are pointing uphill, and the back of the grid is gently downhill. So you need to have a little bit of brake on as well.
And look at the shade on the track here, Martin, from the grandstands, covering parts of the track here. How much of an advantage or disadvantage does being in the shade or not being in the shade give you?
You could do with the heat.
Motherfuckers got
There's
smoke
doubt about
grenades.
it, but it's pretty level, isn't it, across the top 6? But they've widened the grid spots today because 3 drivers were outside them yesterday. Then they realised that actually they weren't the correct size for a 2-metre Formula 1 car.
This is going to be a fascinating race. Max Verstappen making his 162nd career start. He surpasses Ayrton Senna's career total, and he does it right here in Brazil. He's going for a 15th win of the season to extend that winning record for most Grand Prix victories in a calendar season. Mercedes trying for their first victory of the season. Lewis Hamilton doing his best to keep that record alive of at least 1 win in every season.
All right, here we go.
And we got 71 laps ahead of us here in Interlagos. It's lights out.
Green flag.
It weren't held very long at the start. Russell gets away very cleanly though, and he's already got Lewis Hamilton behind him, with Sergio Perez trying down the inside with Lando Norris as well. Verstappen stays ahead of Perez. Norris is trying to get in on the end as Russell leads Hamilton, leads Verstappen and Perez, and then Charles Leclerc, who's lost a couple of places maybe, trying to get back on terms with Lando Norris. Into the Destino Milano we go. George Russell, brilliant start from him. Look how Lando Norris, not feeling 100% today, is having to work hard on these early stages.
And Ferrari, of course, on the medium compound tyres didn't get away so well, so now they've got the McLaren ahead of them. They'll want to be dispatching that as quickly as they can, if indeed they can. Perfect getaway for both Mercedes, and they could take the speed through the first few
Oh, Kevin Magnussen around. Oh! That'll be a caution.
Was looking for a move down the inside. One initial contact and then a second, and that's a safety car on the opening lap here in Interlagos.
Well, damn.
The McLaren out of the race.
Kevin Magnussen, and I think that was Ricardo?
reasonably quickly.
Or was that Norris?
Hopefully not to
Yeah.
damage to the barrier. And we'll see what's going on. So Kevin Magnussen online. It comes to the inside a little bit. Now he's going to get tagged around. And as Ricardo
So already got a caution.
because Magnussen, I think quite rightly, wanted the car to roll backwards at that point. He's got the pack coming at him, but his
hard
aggressor
crash
in that moment then gets his retribution.
Racing for fun and racing for points is what Daniel Ricciardo told us on the grid. That fun and that points lasted about 10 corners, or about 9 corners actually. And there is the scene. That's going to take a couple of laps to try and work out. Despondent faces in the McLaren garage. Was the gap on for Ricciardo to go down the inside?
Didn't look like it. We'll watch it again, but I don't think it certainly wasn't a sudden move from Magnussen. Magnussen went inside to cover the line, but Ricciardo just couldn't slow his car down enough, is how it looked to me. But of course, you know, McLaren in this massive fight with Alpine in the Constructors' Championship, and the two drivers then will go over and have a chat about it. So in a way you could say, you know, don't roll backwards, jam your foot on the brakes, but he'd have been sat right in the middle of the pack. He had to let it roll backwards and try and get out of the way and recover.
It's another incident on the first lap involving Kevin Magnussen. He's had a few of them, hasn't he? This
Man just
season.
threw the tire over.
Officially is the pole man for this weekend after winning qualifying, where he went from pole in the sprint down to 8th on the grid for the Grand Prix, and he, by the time got to turn 8, is out of the Grand Prix. A lap 1 retirement for him, and I think it's only the second time in their careers they've had a lap 1 retirement, but they've had plenty of incidents, both of them on the first lap. Great getaway here though from George Russell.
Oh, the perfect start. And then enabled Lewis to comfortably drop in behind, so they absolutely didn't give any time. And Lando Norris, having taken the grass then to very carefully and well driven in terms of not connecting with Sergio Perez then. And now he's got the Ferraris on his tail, and of course they remain on his tail in the safety car train. So it all looked pretty good, didn't it? They made it through turns 1, 2, 3 and 4 indeed. 5's a bit of a nothing these days, flat out left-hand kink. 6 and 7, that lovely sweeping double right-hander, unsighted when you're in a racing car, and it's all going to go horribly wrong about now. So we're going to see it from Ricciardo's point of view. Yeah, so that's 100% Daniel's fault, unfortunately, and then didn't recognise that that the Haas was freewheeling backwards.
I tend to agree with you on that, Martin. Is there a worry for Daniel Ricciardo that in his last race for McLaren he might be getting a grid penalty as a result of that?
Sorry guys, I'm out. I've got a mess.
Push it up. Yeah.
Somewhat. Good point up to that.
And of course they're fighting as well for a constructor's position to Haas. So that was a shame. Now I've got to give that one 100% to Daniel, I'm afraid.
Well, the upshot is that Kevin Magnussen's teammate Mick Schumacher is now into the top 10. He is scoring 1 point for that. Sebastian Vettel had made it past Kevin Magnussen and up into 8th before the crash. Lance Stroll has made his way from 15th to 12th in the opening stages. Zhou Guanyu started 13th. His teammate Valtteri Bottas started behind him and is now up into 11th, making a little bit of progress. Tsunoda right at the back of the field, as you can see.
Of course, it's very early in the race, but you only lose about 11 seconds if you pit under the safety car, because the pack's obviously going much more slowly. But we're not really far enough into the race, are we? We're not far enough into the race to play, and you'll be right at the back of the pack as well. But would Alex Albon want to get rid of those hard tyres? They put them on in the first place because they thought they were going to be good for a while.
It's a good point. I'm assuming he's got plenty of soft tyres that he could switch on to Alex Albon. As we just watch a few of the replays, he actually hasn't got any new soft tyres, so he might want to stay with those hards for a while. So Kevin Magnussen, both of his lap 1 retirements have come here at Interlagos in collisions with a McLaren. It was Stoffel Van Dorn in 2017, Daniel Ricciardo today.
And the shame of that contact for both of them is that it seems almost certain that Magnussen would have just carried on without that contact, because the touch was just on the rear bodywork, wasn't it? The nearest bit of the rear bodywork.
Daniel Ricciardo already back in that McLaren garage then and explaining just what went wrong. We can head down to Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, hi Crofty, hi Martin, hi everybody. Don't know whether that's a sheepish look from Daniel, and that's really gutting for Kevin Magnussen as well. It's left to Mick Schumacher now to try and score some points for Haas. Mick actually currently P10, so up a couple of places. So a great opening lap from Mick Schumacher in the other Haas. Good as well for Sebastian Vettel, up to P8. And make no mistake about it, that Aston Martin in the hands of Vettel has pace today.
2 seconds, Ted.
There was something strange out of turn 3 with the engine.
Copy, check again.
And I lost a lot of time on power.
Well, after Mexico, where they probably had to turn the engines down a little bit to get through it, we're at altitude again, Martin, and Charles Leclerc a bit concerned there.
Yeah, V6 power unit, as we were watching there, suddenly sounded like a V8, but we were getting the soundtrack of the safety car with a picture of the Ferrari. But so obviously the stewards are looking at the Magnussen-Ricciardo contact, causing a collision.
So Charles, we've checked what you were talking about, the corner exit, and nothing we can do at the moment. I will keep you updated if any news on that.
Yeah, but let me know, is it a problem?
No, it's not a problem.
I was going to say that message rather suggested that it was an issue, but maybe not.
Yeah. Okay, well anyway, there's nothing you can do is unless they can twiddle some buttons on the steering wheel and come up with an amazing F-10 setting or whatever they go to and sort these problems out.
So we're behind the safety car then, whilst the recovery vehicle on the track, just making sure Daniel Ricciardo, his McLaren, is wheeled away. Someone's trying to find a deck chair for Kevin Magnussen, who's on the infield, and Alex Albon is making a change of tyre. He was on the hard compound tyres, so Williams are now decided, after a few laps behind the safety car, let's get him in for a set of mediums, and he has got 3 new set of medium tyres in this race.
Yeah, it's worth him coming in, as I was pointing out, but not too early. You want to be watching the incident and seeing how quickly you think they'll clear it. Because you don't want to put them on straight away and rock up at the back of the crocodile on and let your tyres go cold as well. You really want to catch the back of the pack just as they're restarting.
Yeah.
So, and he had very little to lose, did he, out the back there, Alex Albon, after breaking down, of course, in the sprint race yesterday.
Yeah, the only DNF in the sprint race, and sadly for him, after missing Q3 by 4/100ths of a second, he ends up starting the Grand Prix 19th on the grid because of Yuki Tsunoda starting from the pit lane. Let's have a look at the Lando Norris start. We saw him locking up, but he spotted a gap on the inside of Sergio Perez and very nearly made it stick.
Oh, lovely. Just the right amount. You want about 5% wheel slip for best traction. And it's like, oh yeah, he's pulling down the gears. Oh, it's all a little bit tight, but got away with that one. But then has to be extremely cautious around the outside of turn 2. But it worked for him. It absolutely worked, and that was super.
Yeah, a little lock up there for Lando Norris. As hill starts go, Martin, that was a particularly impressive one, I think.
Yeah.
And let's head down, not to that pit wall, but to the one next door at Alpine. Otmar Safnauer is with us this weekend. Otmar, thanks for joining us. Alonso up to 15.
All right,
I suppose
so we're going back green.
At each other on the first lap, so it was a good start, yes?
Yeah, so far so good, but it looks like they're one behind the other again for this restart. But I'm confident they'll continue to avoid each other for the rest of the race.
Well, I'm sure you had them in the headmaster's office yesterday, Otmar, so you'll have corrected that. But no thoughts then of making a tyre change at the back of the pack there, towards the back?
Yeah, not yet. We discussed it, but yeah, we're going to stay out and run the strategy we started with.
Otmar, thanks ever so much. Safety car is ending. This little period will have helped those on the soft compound tyre, extends their stint by quite some margin.
And also, they all under fuel. They all start the Grand Prix with less fuel than they ideally need because they know there might be a safety car period or rain later on. If not, they have to manage.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to carry 2 or 3 kilos of fuel around for 71 laps. You might as well go home. Or 5 kilo, you definitely go home. You've got to have all of that absolutely on the limit.
Mexico, the only safety car free race in the last 8 Grand Prix. Right, when does George Russell decide he's going to go for it here? No one's going to overtake anybody until we get to the start-finish line. But what he doesn't want to do is blast away too early and then have those behind him sat in the slipstream, picking up a really nice toe and taking advantage.
And you want to release as late as you can, George. You don't want to slipstream that long down the pit straight.
All right, back green.
There he goes. I'll tell you what, Max Verstappen right on the tail. There are Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez too. Perez is looking to try and go down the inside of his teammate. Verstappen goes around the outside of Lewis Hamilton. Has Verstappen got ahead by the time?
Oh, contact.
The Mercedes of Hamilton and the Red Bull of Verstappen.
Oh my God.
Here in Interlagos, Verstappen's got big damage to his wheel.
Verstappen and Hamilton.
Hamilton's moving all over the place, wasn't he? Really struggling to keep the car straight. So that was the kind of thing I was expecting from Max. I talked about it in the pre-show. He's definitely had to get his elbows out, and they've been severely bruised.
And round the outside goes Charles.
Oh, there goes Charles Leclerc. Into the fucking wall. That's going to be a caution again.
After one safety car, we could well get another here at Interlagos in a drama-filled restart here on lap 7 of the
No caution yet.
Grand Prix.
Track clear.
Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton making contact, Norris and then Leclerc.
And Leclerc's up and running again, so he'll be able to stick a front wing on that hopefully and carry on. We saw him in the back of the picture.
Amazed that he managed to get going again. There is Verstappen, there is Hamilton right behind him. I thought he might have got a puncture, but no, he's carrying on.
You left me those, please. Front lane guys. Yeah, we are boxing, Max. Box.
Well, we'll have a look at the replays in a moment. This is panning out lovely, isn't it, for George Russell? He leads the Grand Prix. Sergio Perez is currently second. Lando Norris on his birthday's third. Then comes Carlos Sainz on the medium tyre, running very nicely in fourth ahead of Sebastian Vettel, Pierre Gasly, Mick Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll and Valtteri Bottas as Verstappen comes in then to change that front wing. And behind him, Leclerc also in the pits.
That's quite a long stop for a front wing as well. So well, they're showing him 10. I thought they were showing him 18 seconds at one point then. But it's normally a dozen seconds for a front wing change.
Really thought we were going to get another safety car there, Martin, with both those incidents which have been noted by race control. That's the FIA race control, and our race control here today, Karun Chandok.
Yeah, thanks, Rofty. Will Joseph came on the radio to Lando Norris saying, everything looks good from my side.
I'll be right
Lando's
back.
come back and said, it's not. Something feels a bit odd on the steering wheel, so we'll watch out for that.
We certainly will. He's under pressure here from Carlos Sainz, currently running fourth for Ferrari and about to get a very nice toe up the hill behind the McLaren. There's Perez, and there's the leader, just disappearing out of shot. 1.5 seconds between George Russell and Sergio Perez.
Yeah, we've got Verstappen and Leclerc. They're down in 17th and 18th now as Lewis Hamilton in the background is being passed.
And Lewis Hamilton then dueling away with Mick Schumacher, and we saw just ahead Carlos Sainz making the move on Lando Norris. Hamilton runs 7th, Schumacher 8th, and Carlos Sainz up into the podium places. Now this is what happened. Verstappen's ahead going into turn 1. Hamilton now ahead going into there. Who's at fault?
Let's see it again. I think Max had earned the right to a little bit more space there.
I mean, Max is right. There was no space. Did Hamilton think, well, I didn't need to give him space because I was ahead? That's the incident that saw Charles Leclerc disappear off into the barriers. He must have hit it the right way because so often we see a bit of damage from the wrong angle.
Are you okay?
And we ought to talk about who might be at fault for this one as well. He just got on the curb, Lando Norris, and moved him across the track a bit and into the path of the Ferrari.
Yeah, I think I'll say that's a racing incident in terms of he understeered a little bit in the corner, and I'm not sure you could apply. It certainly wasn't Leclerc's fault, that's without doubt.
Here goes Hamilton again. Nothing wrong with his Mercedes on this occasion. Past Mick Schumacher on the previous lap, now past Pierre Gasly on this lap, and he's up in the 6th. Don't forget, he started 10th, didn't certainly. Last year for the Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton went on to win the race. A long way to go to see what he can do here, but his teammate, George Russell, controlling things nicely out in front after winning the sprint yesterday, eyeing up a potential maiden Grand Prix victory here today. This is quite a key battle. Lance Stroll and Valtteri Bottas, Aston Martin and Alfa Romeo very close together in the Constructors' Championship.
And I'm looking at the other Aston Martin. Vettel was really strong, wasn't he, in yesterday's sprint with great pace. So they're up there in 5th place already. And Lando Norris continuing on the radio to talk about a strange feeling in the steering in right-handers.
And Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen under investigation now with the stewards for causing a collision. And the stewards are also investigating Norris and Leclerc.
So Verstappen was in front as he turned left.
From what we can see, it doesn't look massive on TV pictures. Pace does look good though.
He's got DRS behind Sebastian Vettel here once again. He's a long way back. Hamilton gets closer with an extra, 11 miles an hour advantage for that DRS behind the Aston Martin. Next time around, he might be a bit closer and in a chance to make the move. You were saying what?
I was indeed. Don't count Hamilton out yet unless he gets a penalty, but he looks like his pace is certainly plenty good enough, and fastest man on the track last time around, albeit with a nice slipstream up the hill.
What do these FIA stewards' guidelines say these days? Hamilton was ahead, Verstappen was coming at him. Who would have the right to that corner under the current guidelines?
It depends whether your front axles are level or it's your front axle against his or her rear axle. And then the layout of the corner. And so do you keep is your car under control? Were you given racing room? Were you taking liberties? You know, and now they've got the throttle angles, they've got the steering angles, they've got the onboards and all sorts of other data they'll be looking at to determine exactly where each car was as it entered the moment.
3 times winner in Interlagos, Sebastian Vettel is ahead then of 3 times Interlagos winner Lewis Hamilton as they make their way up towards the final corner, and you can see Hamilton closing and closing, but I tell you what, that Aston Martin is a sprightly thing on the straights here, not suffering some of the drag problems we've seen in previous races, and Vettel holds him off again. There is George Russell, race leader, still about a second.
How does Charles Leclerc have the fastest lap with all that damage?
Running in 3rd place, Lando Norris 4th, and Sebastian Vettel currently in 5th place with Lewis Hamilton right behind him. Verstappen and Leclerc currently 17th and 18th after having to make their pit stops after Verstappen made contact with Hamilton and Leclerc made contact with Norris.
Yeah, and Verstappen, he might be towards back. He's 16 seconds behind Albon though, albeit lapping 2 seconds a lap faster. Ted.
Red Bull, they really did do their part. Martin, you did see that right. It was only a 10-second stop for a new nose, and I think that's almost a new world record. I've never seen it less than 11, so that's amazing. The Red Bull mechanics really did their job in turning around Verstappen's car quickly, and he's on the medium tyre as well.
Right, we're watching the battle, Hamilton and Vettel here. Elsewhere, Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon are running, 12th and 11th, and gaining on Valtteri Bottas too for that final place in the points.
It's important to go long. We need to open that gap.
Here comes Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel once again. Maybe Vettel being helped picking up a slipstream behind Lando Norris, who I think started to struggle a little bit in that McLaren. Keeps his place. Ocon has now got Lance Stroll for 10th place, and there is a time penalty, a 5-second time penalty for Max Verstappen for causing a collision. Do you want to discuss that?
So Max Verstappen has a 5-second time penalty.
That's what I thought, but there you go. But my reckoning is all about how they went into turn 1 with Max ahead and around the outside. But there you go.
We'll come back to that in a moment. There's Valtteri Bottas.
And Norris gets a 5-second penalty too.
I think that is a little more clear cut on that one. That's Esteban Ocon and Lance Stroll.
But that's how you let somebody, that's how you get through side by side through turn 2.
I think Max definitely ahead. into turn 1, dropping down the hill. Lewis then ahead of Max.
That's indisputable, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the guidelines say that it probably was then Lewis's corner, given the way the stewards have applied that penalty. Either way, it's ruined rather both of their races, and at the moment Hamilton trying to make amends, pulling out from behind the slipstream of Sebastian Vettel's Aston Martin, taking it 3 laps. He's managed to get his man. 6 wins between them here at Interlagos, and you can tell from the reaction of the crowd who they're favouring most in that particular battle. Now, Lando Norris has got a bit of trouble because Lewis Hamilton is gaining on him into Destino del Lago. Norris stays ahead.
But what was incredible there was how much time Hamilton took out of Norris into turn 1 whilst overtaking another car off the main racing line. That Mercedes is super fast, but I'm not surprised to hear them on the pit wall saying to George Russell, can you give us a little bit more space up front?
You've been given a 5-second time penalty for the collision at turn 1.
And where did they expect me to go? He just closed the door on me. But doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll move on.
I'm assuming they expected him to back off a little bit, but that's very difficult in that moment.
I'll stand by what I said. I think he'd earned the right to more racing room than that, Max Verstappen I'm talking about. So I'll stick with that.
Something about this place, isn't it? Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton giving it absolutely everything on this occasion. Well, they both came off its suffering. Verstappen has suffered more than Hamilton on this occasion. There goes Lewis Hamilton. You notice the pace difference on the previous lap. Look at that. Even before he jams the brakes on to head into turn 1, Lewis Hamilton now ahead of Lando Norris. He's up into the top 4, and he's got about 4 seconds to gain on Carlos Sainz as Alonso makes his pit stop.
Bit of deja vu for last year, though, isn't it? Lewis just steaming back through the pack twice. We saw it last year, but he's only 9 seconds off the lead, is Lewis Hamilton, which I think is very telling at this stage of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, George Russell's up to the pace just a little bit, taken a couple of tenths extra advantage against Sergio Perez on the last lap. Fernando Alonso pits and comes out in 17th. And shall we have another look, Martin?
Right, so we're in front. Now we're alongside, but we're quite clearly alongside. And we tried to take the curb on board that car. So actually, Max started that defending from Perez.
Yeah, but Hamilton gets ahead. Then when they get to the apex, they're alongside.
Yeah.
Just before the apex, Hamilton's slightly ahead.
He is slightly ahead, but you've still got a car that you know is theirs on the inside. But then you could equally say, and that's what the stewards have done, is well, get out of the throttle. But all right, I'm not changing my mind. I'm not changing my mind. I'll stick with how I called it live.
You've had enough races, Martin Brundle. Don't want you to change your mind, just give us your honest views. We're on board with Sebastian Vettel, who lost a place then to Lewis Hamilton, is trying to get a place back now with Lando Norris, as Zhou Guanyu now goes ahead of Lance Stroll, moves up into 11th place, and Stroll slips further away from the points. Lap 16 here, this Sao Paulo Grand Prix, full of incidents so far. If you're a Sky Kia or a Sky Glass customer and you've missed the first 15 laps, well, press your red button. You can watch highlights of the live action, the highlights of the race alongside the live action. Alonso's pit, by the way, no damage, no issues. That was all strategy, and they were expecting him in round about this time. There's the gap then between the two Mercedes. They started alongside each other on the front row, and it's around about 10 seconds between Russell and Hamilton.
Yeah, and now Lewis got a little bit of free air in front of him, so he's got 3.8 seconds to Sainz. So we'll see now what his pure pace is.
What do we have, about 5 laps behind the safety car? Is that enough to turn a 2-stop race into a 1-stop race, or not, I wonder?
Was it as long as that?
Yeah.
His heading, it was certainly 4, wasn't it? And then we didn't get the second safety car.
Here goes Sebastian Vettel down the inside on Lando Norris. Sebastian Vettel has seen that move pulled off a few times in this race, and he's done it himself a few times in the past. And he's now up into the top 5, which means Lando Norris now has Pierre Gasly behind him, as Norris, with DRS though, tries to gain in on the Aston Martin. By the time they get to Destino del Lago, nothing doing in terms of an overtaking. Into the pits then, we have Zhou Guanyu. Trying to see the medium tyres that went on to the Alfa Romeo driver, and Zhou will come out down in 18th place. So Verstappen and Leclerc moving up just a little bit after they had to pit and change their wings. Here comes Valtteri Bottas, who was saying had some really good pace yesterday in the Alfa Romeo, and I think we could be on for a decent one here today. He's now up into 8th place after getting past Mick Schumacher.
Yeah, there's our leader. We haven't seen too much of him. He's nicely out front. Got it up to 2 seconds now. He needs, as Sainz is about to pit for Ferrari, but he needs to extend on those tyres. He's got to, and he's in a lovely place to do that. He's nowhere near any back markers. Sainz has pitted, and he's able to really drive that car smoothly.
Made his F1 debut here, didn't he, for Force India in 2017. That was the brakes there, but so we see the smoking in the tyres as Sainz comes out. Ted, down to you.
Right rear, yeah, the right rear brakes are still smoking as Carlos Sainz comes down the pit lane. That brake has an issue. That's a definite issue there. It's still smoking. Can it blow itself out and cool itself down? I'm not sure. You tend not to. These things can get worse and worse. That's quite early off the medium tyre, so I think there's more degradation than they thought. Is it still smoking now as he rejoins?
It certainly was. Now he's going to get some cooler air, but he's right behind is Carlos Sainz, the Williams of Alex Albon, and won't be getting much cool air coming off the back of that Williams.
I think it's sorted itself out a little bit. There'll be more around the disc and the cake tin, as they call it, around the disc. So hopefully that now looks as if it's sorted itself out, but Sainz slots back in then.
Oh, and he's trying to go around the outside here of Alex Albon, trying to find that free air by pulling off the overtake, and he does. Carlos Sainz up into 11th place. Let's go to race control. Karun Chandok.
In case you're wondering why the guy on the medium tyres pitted before...
2 seconds, Karun.
There was a tear off stuck in the brake duct.
So, in case you're wondering why the guy on mediums pitted before the ones on softs, 2 reasons. A, they had to get that tear-off out. B, he was really not happy with that tyre. And that is something we saw yesterday, didn't we? The medium tyre was not good. We see all that smoke there from the overheating brake, and hopefully it's going to cool down, as Martin said. But the medium tyre on that Ferrari was not good, which we need to watch out for when the others switch to it late in the race.
Yeah, that was the case yesterday, wasn't it? Soft tyre was the one. Unknowns going into this race. Maybe the soft tyre is still the one, Martin.
We'll find out, but that's certainly how it looks. I agree with Karun. Good spot there, but obviously that's a fully unscheduled stop for Carlos Sainz, given the extra problem he had there with it. We keep talking about this. Got to do something about tear-off. There was a time I remember having like a little sort of glove box thing where you had to put your rip-offs, your tear-offs, in your own car with some Velcro or something like that. You couldn't just release them into the car behind you. I think we need to go back to something like that.
What I did see, the tear-off did free itself and it did come out lying on the floor as the Ferrari pulled away.
And they have a large number of those on the car, on their helmets, by the way. Unless you can have like a film situation where it just slides across.
Valtteri Bottas was lining up an overtaking chance, but Pierre Gasly's ruined that for him. Even though Bottas does make up the place and up into 6th, Gasly has decided to come into the pits and maybe trying to cover off that slightly earlier pit stop by the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. On go, a medium compound tyre.
Tyres are very good. Let's go long, let's go long.
Set the fastest lap in 3 of the last 4 Grand Prix is George Russell, setting some pace out in front now, over 2 seconds clear of Sergio Perez and wanting to go long.
Yeah, lovely clear information there from George, and obviously his team on the pit wall have got a lot more information than he has, because he's only got the information of one car and they can see what's happening with others on the mediums, what have you. But he's saying there, look, let's just my feeling is, so add that to your feelings up on the pit wall.
Sergio Perez then, nearly 3 seconds behind him as we ride on board with the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, who was behind Lance Stroll. He's not behind Lance Stroll anymore. Carlos Sainz, second lap running there, has decided that he can pull off a move at a part of the track where maybe you don't normally get too many moves. That was lovely from him, going down through Maguglio.
Fast driver, fast car, and some very fast tyres, and that's why he's able to sort of drive any which way he likes at the moment. Ted?
The word from Mercedes that Hamilton's car is still okay, nothing wrong now. They actually had a look at all the data. AlphaTauri ready for the other car, but Crofty, wasn't it just the only soft tyre that Sergio Perez has in P2 at the moment is the one that he's on now? So even if he wanted to try and undercut on Russell, not that he maybe has the pace, he couldn't do it on a soft tyre, could he? He could only go, oh, that's close with the Williams as the AlphaTauri gets away. So he could only go to the medium tyre. So yeah, Red Bull will be figuring out what they can do with Checo to challenge Russell, but Russell looking good so far.
Red Bull said to me today, we think Mercedes have got a better car than us and a faster car than us, as we see Carlos Sainz once again making that move on Lance Stroll. Last lap, Sergio Perez was 4/10 slower than George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, as Sainz does it again. This time it's Mick Schumacher who he's going to get past and down the inside, and after that change onto the soft compound tyre, this Ferrari is reborn. He is breathing new life into it, and the Scarlet Machine is red hot out on the track. 8 now for Carlos Sainz, making up more and more places. But what of Sergio Perez? Last couple of laps, Martin, he's just started to lose touch in terms of pace with both Mercedes.
Yeah, he's lost another second, hasn't he? Hamilton's catching him, but I talked about Hamilton being 9.6, then 9.9 off the lead, is now 9.7. So it's stabilised in the top 3, that 10 seconds covering them.
Charles Leclerc is told to box. Now, it's not that long since Charles Leclerc came in to look at some damage and change his tyres after making contact with a barrier.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about second place in the World Championship as Ferrari, and looking at the running order at the moment, Mercedes 1 and 3, Ferrari 8, and he's pitted from 16th. Oh dear.
Yeah, 36 points the difference going into this race, and currently Mercedes making big inroads into that, if not, let's just do the maths, yeah, if not at the moment overtaking, still overtaking. Carlos Sainz needs to increase his points positions for Ferrari to hold on to that second place. But that is going to be very tasty going into Abu Dhabi based on the way this race is going so far.
That's without a doubt. So where are the other races down there? We've got Mick Schumacher, he's been passed by Sainz, quite close. So Ocon and Bottas are running quite close together for 6th and 7th, but Valtteri Bottas, a lot of somehow experience seems to really matter here, doesn't it? On this quirky little circuit.
14 laps old, those medium tyres on Max Verstappen's Red Bull. This was the corner that he went into, dropping down the hill, where he tried to get past Lewis Hamilton. They made contact. Hamilton went off the track. Verstappen had massive damage to his front wing, and that's pretty much been the end of his competitiveness in terms of the podium so far, but he is gaining, as you can see, on Alex Albon and trying to get back into the points again.
Are we on a 2 or a 3? Important to know. The moment we are on a 2, the egg is looking better than expected.
Last time Max Verstappen finished out the points, of course, Australia, with that second DNF in 3 races at the start of the season.
Perez pits from 2nd.
Freeze then Lewis Hamilton, who's round about 8.5 seconds behind his teammate George Russell. Where's this going to put Perez in this race? Sebastian Vettel goes through, Lando Norris, Valtteri Bottas goes through, Esteban Ocon and Carlos Sainz. There's a speedy stop there from the Red Bull crew, 2 seconds stationary. Perez is going to come back out onto the track. Let's have a little look now as his teammates coming into the pits too. He's going to go wheel to wheel with Valtteri Bottas. Bottas just ahead of him. The crew did their best to get Perez in and out ahead of Bottas. Didn't quite work out for him.
No, that's hurt him a lot, hasn't it? He'll have the pace. But if he's going to think of undercutting George Russell, so Mercedes will be watching this corner by corner, sector by sector, to see if they feel the need to react.
He increased the gap, didn't he, George Russell? It was over 3 seconds, so might have taken him out of that undercut range as Perez trying to go around the outside at Magulio, but once again, Bottas has got him covered. George Russell is coming into the pits. Perez in a right old scrap here with Valtteri Bottas, who's got the inside line to the next corner. Perez has the speed round the outside, though, and gets ahead of that Alfa Romeo. So while he now reaches Jung Sao, our leader of the race, George Russell, slower stop by a second at Mercedes, now making his way out at 80 kilometers an hour and back into the race once again. Perez, as you can see, about to cross the start-finish line, as into the pits comes Norris and Bottas for their first change of tyres.
All right, so George Russell's in the pits. Lewis Hamilton has the lead.
Safely into this race ahead of Sergio Perez, but now he's going wheel to wheel with Sebastian Vettel. That extra second stationary might have cost George Russell, but he's just got enough pace to get out ahead of the Aston Martin.
Yeah, and again, then plenty of clear air in front of him. Norris will have to serve his 5-second penalty on this pit stop, so he'll lose out, but then at least he's got that out of the way.
As you can see, 8 seconds stationary for Lando Norris. Penalty served. Back out into the race once more, and he'll be down at about 13.
I didn't know that you could serve a time penalty.
His teammate Valtteri Bottas had just pitted. That is.
I thought you had to like.
Pit stop.
Like I didn't know you could do that.
Penalty that he was serving, of course.
I don't think you can in the game.
That seemed a little bit longer on the tyres there than we'd have thought.
Amongst all that excitement, they had a 3-second delay on that rear tyre after he'd served his 5-second penalty.
Well, it never rains, but it pours, sadly, for Max Verstappen this afternoon. That flurry into the pits lane has left Lewis Hamilton out in front on 25-lap-old soft compound tyre. 4 or 5 of those laps, of course, behind the safety car. His teammate George Russell now on the mediums, and we'll see the comparison. Mercedes will be fascinated by the data between Russell and Hamilton in terms of sector times. And well, in the first sector, on new mediums, George Russell only a 10th quicker than Lewis Hamilton. Sebastian Vettel runs 3rd. Perez now runs 5th. 4th, I should say, ahead of Carlos Sainz in 5th. And this is the view that Lewis Hamilton had when the Red Bull and the Mercedes made contact.
Oh, Lewis didn't even get that much damage from that.
He ran over a bit of debris, didn't he, from the Red Bull?
Well, yeah, and it took a fair old munch out the side of it as well, didn't it? On the apex of 2 there.
That gap then between Hamilton and Russell, 10 seconds. You lose about 22 seconds when making a pit stop. Russell half a second quicker through the middle sector as we now turn our attention to the final podium place as it stands currently, and Sebastian Vettel hasn't pitted yet, and will do so now. Sergio Perez was probably going to get him anyway. Seems like a good time for the Aston Martin to pit. It's been a very strong opening stint for the 4-time world champion. So he comes into the pits. Sainz goes ahead of him now. Next driver on the track is Lance Stroll. Vettel could get in and out ahead of his teammate here, who has pitted, or hasn't pitted, I should say, this race.
And Sainz then now only 15 seconds off the lead, and Hamilton hasn't pitted yet, so it's a 22-second stop. So Sainz bringing himself into contention, but on the radio saying, right, have I got to eke these tyres out, or am I 3-stopping here this afternoon?
Because that is always the potential, isn't it? Sebastian Vettel eked out his tyres for the opening stint, comes out behind Gasly, comes out behind Bottas as well in 9th place. Bottas stops a couple of laps to go. The undercut working very well there for Alfa Romeo. Behind Vettel and Bottas and Vettel comes Joe Guan Yu, and he's got Esteban Ocon right on his tail as through Ferradura, the right-hand horseshoe, they go. Undercut seems quite powerful here.
And very much so. And then, of course, so is the DRS down the back straight, but Norris then drops back to P12 with that extra penalty that he took there. We haven't really seen too much of a replay of that with him and the Ferrari, have we?
Also worth pointing out, Fernando Alonso in 6th place currently, Martin, has made a stop, of course, but up to 6. Stopped rather early, didn't he, Fernando Alonso? But is in a great position currently. Lance Stroll, the only one who hasn't stopped so far, and we're on board now with Valtteri Bottas, currently in 8th place. I think 7th will be a lot nicer. Going wheel to wheel there with Pierre Gasly. Valtteri Bottas enters the first corner, and he's ahead with Sebastian Vettel. Close attendance behind Pierre Gasly. We'll be looking for a very nice exit out of the Curva de Sol, and a bit of DRS maybe down that Red Raposta. But as you can see, Gasly's got DRS himself, and one is rather negating the other in terms of Sebastian Vettel's progress. Let's head down to 10.
Yeah, new news from McLaren on Lando Norris. He does still have that steering problem. He's still saying that he's got a steering problem. They have looked on the data, Team Radio.
6x10.
Yeah, copy that, Lewis. Nothing on the radar at the moment, which is discussing.
He should know this as a proud now honorary Brazilian. It's just as we get towards 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, it does tend to get a bit dark. But no, it's a little bit cooler now, and that will help the tyres. But no rain that I can see in the pit lane. Yeah, Lando's still feeling he's got an issue with his steering on that McLaren.
Thank you very much, Ted.
It looks like it's getting a little overcast. I know that earlier in the week there was talks of rain, but
where the rain came from a couple of days ago, that's starting to get very murky and very hazy.
Yeah, it's, well, you never know here, do you? But they were showing officially a 10% chance of rain. But you're right, that looks more than a 10% chance of rain. This is like a 100% chance for Sebastian Vettel to get through on Pierre Gasly.
He's enjoying this weekend, Sebastian Vettel, ahead then of the Alpha Tauri and up into 8th place, and that leaves us then with Hamilton out in front, 7.5 seconds clear of George Russell. He hasn't stopped yet. He's going to stop in a few moments' time. Russell was about a second quicker on the last lap, as down the inside into turn 1 goes Charles Leclerc, and that is a super little move on Yuki Tsunoda. Leclerc puts himself up into 14th place now. So Hamilton's coming in, Stroll needs to come in too. Hamilton is being told to box, and we'll see where he can come back out into this race. You would imagine he'll be back out behind Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, almost certainly.
On go the tyres, medium compound for Lewis Hamilton. He's got to lap 30 before making a pit stop.
Yeah, that means he's got a very good chance of getting to the end on these tyres then, doesn't it?
Yeah. Are they just going for the one-stopper with Lewis Hamilton, whilst others might have to stop for a second time? Once again, not the quickest pit stop we'll see this afternoon, or have seen. Hamilton makes his exits from the pits into 4th place, while the stewards are looking at an incident involving the Alfa Romeo team. That's all we know about it. We'll send Ted down to find out, and they're going to look at that after the race.
So Lewis stopped 13 laps later than Carlos Sainz. Sainz on the soft tyres, of course, but Lewis on brand spanking new medium compound tyres. But 13 laps of this track is a long way with this tortuous middle sector from turns 4 through to turn 12. So that's his target, and he's got a very good chance of quite quickly catching that Ferrari, I'd have thought.
Well, let's see what the pace is for him. His teammate George Russell, 1:15.9 on the last lap. He now retakes and takes over once again the lead of this race from Sergio Perez, who lapped the last lap in the low 1:16s. It was a 1:16.1 for Sergio Perez. It was a 1:16.6 for Carlos Sainz. He hasn't got the pace of the others in the top 3 as it stands. Here's Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez's teammate, of course. And there is the Williams of Alex Albon. And that was a lot more clean for Max Verstappen into turn 1 than previous routes have been.
Such as his afternoon mean, that's for P16. He was splitting the Williams before that.
There's the state of the tyres then. As you can see, Sainz has been on those soft tyres for a while. And Fernando Alonso committing, you would imagine, to at least a 2-stopper, but running nicely. And in terms of pace, 1:16.4 for the last lap is pretty handy for Fernando Alonso.
So Verstappen's occasionally been in the 50s. He's now low 1:16s. That's the leader's pace. But George Russell now then with a 4.6 second lead.
Here comes Esteban Ocon. Pierre Gasly struggling out there for pace, and is easy prey for the likes of Esteban Ocon, who gets past his teammate Pierre Gasly, or his teammate for next season, I should say, Pierre Gasly. And we'll see how that combination carries forward for Alpine, with Fernando Alonso moving, of course, to Aston Martin.
That midfield feels like a game of snakes and ladders today, doesn't it? They're suddenly catapulting up front, make a pit stop, fall back down again, take a penalty on a snake, and see if he can find another ladder.
Whew, there's a lap. His teammate did a 1:15.9 on the last lap. Lewis Hamilton's just done a 1:15.0 for the fastest lap of the race so far. That's a second and a half faster than Carlos Sainz. It's 1.3 seconds faster than Sergio Perez, and as I said, Martin, it's a second faster than George Russell.
Yeah, he's got to get them a long way, though, hasn't he? If he's going to get to the end on those 41 laps. 40 laps, isn't it? When did he come in? Lewis Hamilton came in on lap 29. So, yeah, got to do 42 laps on those set of tyres.
But at this sort of pace, he might actually be able to stop a second time.
Yeah.
If that carries on.
Maybe that's the strategy then. Go like crazy and stop again, but it's a 22-second stop.
Hammer time, they used to call it. They probably are once more. So impressive was that last lap. 3 laps time. Lewis Hamilton should be right on the tail of Carlos Sainz. And looking at the sector times so far, he's about 3/10 up on the leader of this race, George Russell. And he's making big inroads into Carlos Sainz, about half a second clear on this lap so far.
A 15.6 this time around for Lewis Hamilton, now closing that gap very quickly to Sainz. So both Mercedes clearly at this phase.
Let us know how this tire is feeling.
Black and round and grippy. I'll stick with them. Good.
Sticky as a stick.
Can they...
Maybe George is managing the pace a little bit as well. Here's Lance Stroll next to try and pull off an overtake. As I said, we had 37 in the sprint yesterday. Stroll here on Yuki Tsunoda. Ahead by a car length going into turn 1. Right behind these two, arriving on the scene there, you can see Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. It's the battle for 14, 15 and 16, which is not where Max Verstappen imagined in his wildest nightmares that he would be this afternoon.
So Russell's tyres are 5 laps older than Hamilton, so that could be a factor towards the end of the Grand Prix. Hamilton now, because he ran longer and obviously more slowly on the initial set of tyres, 13 seconds off the lead. Got the fastest lap point in his pocket at the moment. So we know that can be changed even on the very last lap of the Grand Prix.
And we're riding on board then with Max Verstappen in P16. If you're thinking to yourself, how did Max Verstappen get that far down the grid? If you're a Sky Q or a Sky Glass customer, press your red button. You can watch the highlights of this race so far. Alongside the live action, we've had plenty to contend with so far. We're not even at half race distance yet. So Verstappen in P16, right behind the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda. He pulls over to the right-hand side. That Red Bull has got way more pace than the AlphaTauri. Verstappen then up into the top 15, which will be no comfort whatsoever. And Ted Kravitz, everywhere I look around Interlagos at the moment, I'm thinking to myself, I wish I'd have brought a jacket to the commentary box, because it is getting very, very misty.
Okay, I mean, I can't see that. I can confirm that the temperature has cooled off, but I'll keep an eye on the weather. Also keeping an eye on all these pit lane incidents. It looks like the one with Mick Schumacher and the Sauber team are linked, and the suspicion is at the moment that the Alfa Romeo Sauber mechanics didn't pull in their wheel guns when Mick, who is in the Haas garage, the next one down, was coming in, and there might have been something to do with that. It is a courtesy each team extends to each other. It's not a rule, but that's what the stewards are saying they're going to have a look at after. But if there was something, normally if there was something that's actually broken a rule, you get a penalty in the middle of the race. That's not what the stewards are saying here.
No, they're going to investigate it after the race. Thanks, Ted, for clearing that one up. I've never seen a message that said pit lane incident, the team will be investigated after the race. We are on board now with Charles Leclerc. There is the Haas of Mick Schumacher. Sorry, there was the Haas of Mick Schumacher. Leclerc's made that move, and he, like Max Verstappen, making progress up the field now and into 12. Where's Lando Norris? At the moment, Lando Norris is in the final points position, but he'd like to double that tally and get past Pierre Gasly. Norris, of course, having a 5-second time penalty for the incident with Charles Leclerc that punted Leclerc off and into the barriers. Norris served that time penalty and lost quite a few places while he was stationary in the pit lane. It's all settling down a little bit more out in front at the moment. And so, on the last lap, lap 35, Martin, now George Russell and Sergio Perez start to find similar lap times within 100ths of a second of each other.
Yeah, I suspect George is just managing that gap. You know, when you get it up to that amount, you've covered off any undercut. You can react to the other team bringing their driver in unexpectedly. So then it's about eking your tyre grip out to the end of the Grand Prix, and Lando Norris will be extremely happy to see that.
Yeah, he'll get DRS and there'll be no one in front of him because Gasly's pitted and Fernando Alonso too. That needed a second stab at the wheel nuts, isn't it, from that wheel gun. That isn't... Wow, Ted, what happened there? The left rear tyre, that was all the issue, wasn't it?
No, insult to injury, then he had to wait for Pierre Gasly as well, so lost another couple of seconds.
that's why they stopped. You can see the mechanic there slamming that wheel gun in frustration. Carlos Sainz is also coming in, which is not a surprise.
So obviously Fernando was released on the light, and then you just hair trigger. You're gone. You can't see anything else. And when you're sitting in the car and all the wheel guns are attacking the spindles and all that, car's rocking around. But then somebody very quickly asked him to stop as Sainz then pits for the second time from 4th place.
He's doing it the hard earned Carlos Sainz this weekend, taking a new engine and the penalty that went with it, and taking a second pit stop at just over half race distance.
Yeah, they're sort of between the devil and the deep blue sea now, aren't they, in terms of strategy, because of that rip-off in his brake duct earlier on where they had to pit out of sync, really, out of phase. And they're paying a heavy price for that. But, and also, you know, I know he was in the fence quite heavily, but Leclerc sort of slowly making his way back through the pack. He's 45 seconds off the lead. And Max Verstappen 51 seconds off the lead, so they're so far out of kilter.
Meanwhile, Max Verstappen, after seeing a few cars come and go in this race, is seeing another one going. That's Lance Stroll. He's just overtaken there, so he moves his way up into 12th. This is Fernando Alonso and his battle with Alex Albon. Nice bit of driving, Fernando Alonso, as he moves up another place.
Yeah, we've seen some really unorthodox non-DRS moves today, haven't we? I like it.
Well, they said get the cars to change their aerodynamic effects, have them running a bit closer together, make it easier to follow. There's a big lock up there by Zhou Guanyu. We might get some more overtaking as a result. We have seen a number of incidents at Lorania, down into through Mugello as well, Mugello, I should say, as well. Places you don't normally see too many overtakes here at Interlagos. Out in front, George Russell managing beautifully the pace. He's put another 3/10 advantage on
F1 does it right. They don't have commercial brakes.
Red Bull as Zhou Guanyu pits, slams on the brakes.
Hell, I don't even think I saw a commercial break in their pre-race show. Like, I was watching their pre-race show, and I don't even think they had commercial breaks there. Like, F1 does it right.
This time he's picked off Yuki Tsunoda, and up now into 13th with Zhou Guanyu pitting.
Yeah, no silly games from Zhou Guanyu there down the pit straight. It's too dangerous.
NASCAR needs to take a page out of F1's book on that.
Made Alonso go the long way round, and that's all he could do.
4-second pit stop stationary for Zhou Guanyu. It's not going to help his progress, and he comes out down in 17th. There's Lewis Hamilton. He was 14.8 seconds behind George Russell after he rejoined on lap 29. He's currently 10 seconds behind his teammate George Russell. So he has reduced that advantage by about 5 seconds. And he could well be on Sergio Perez in about 4 laps' time.
Sainz goes fastest of anybody so far and claims that one World Championship point for now, as he starts having to try to come back at Lewis Hamilton and the yo-yo effect of different strategies and different tyres. He's been very strong this weekend, Sainz, but you have to say, once again, like yesterday, the two Mercedes do look as if they've got consistently good pace. That's the key.
Which is not something I don't think you've said much of this season, if at all.
Well, they've been consistent, but they were sort of so far off the ultimate pace that it didn't really matter, did it? It didn't show up enough, but now, because often they've had a better race car than qualifying car, haven't they? But it didn't, you know, they weren't close enough to make it count.
Have we undercut Perez? Not yet. We are side by side at speed exit. It is pitting now.
Okay, which means, Carlos, you might need to set another fastest lap of the race.
Which Perez didn't hit. So, yeah, they're 22.3 seconds apart. So, I like that from Carlos. He's driving the car flat out, and he's thinking about another driver who is actually nowhere near him on the racetrack. He's going into turn 1, and Perez is in turn 5, but he knows what he needs to do. Leave him alone, as they say.
Between them, of course, Lewis Hamilton now 3 seconds behind. Let's go back to 9th place. Charles Leclerc has Lando Norris in his sights, and as they cross the line, Charles Leclerc is just out of DRS range, but is starting to catch Norris at a rate of knots. Karun Chandok at Sky Race Control.
Yeah, just been watching the pace of the two Mercedes drivers, Crofty. The track temperature.
Thanks, Karun.
And we have undercutting now.
The track temperature has dropped 11 degrees since the start of this Grand Prix. And remember yesterday, the cooler temperatures favoured them. Well, Hamilton's made huge inroads into Sergio Perez, 5/6 per lap. George Russell, meanwhile, has lifted his pace up. So I think Perez is the one now who's in trouble. He's 8 seconds off George, and Lewis is on the attack.
And of course, if Sergio Perez pits, well, he's going to come out behind Carlos Sainz. Now, Sainz might struggle a bit more in that final stint, but as you just heard the message relayed to Carlos Sainz, now we have undercut him. So what a Red Bull do there. They need to go longer, but if the longer they do that, the more trouble Perez could be in.
Yeah, and Perez put those tyres on lap 23, so if he wants to one stop and hold that position, which seems nearly impossible, doesn't it, to do 48 laps. Ted.
Just to add to what Karun is saying, it's not that Lewis is building up for a one-stop here. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's unlikely because a one-stop's very difficult to achieve here. This is all about Mercedes trying to get a 1-2 in this race, just what Karun is saying. So they're trying to build an offset. The reason Lewis stayed out longer in that first stint was to build this tyre offset to Sergio Perez to try and make sure that Lewis is on younger tyres later on the race so he can get him. Just right in front of me while I say this, Yuki Tsunoda comes in. Is that a clean stop? Yeah. Oh, no, he goes for the full start, but then he goes out again. So, yeah, this is all about Mercedes trying to get a 1-2 today. Who would have thought? Yeah, well, they were 1-2 on the grid, so actually I would have thought.
To be fair, it was going to be any race. It was going to be this one, Ted, given it has been their only front row lockout of this season so far.
So Hamilton gets the gap down to Russell to under 10 seconds again.
George, we're thinking soft for the last stint. Let us know if you prefer medium.
Yeah, copy no soft.
That is no soft, isn't it? Not no soft.
Or is that, yeah, copy no soft? I don't want soft.
Yeah,
that wasn't as clear, I didn't think, as his earlier messages.
Copy no soft.
Yeah, but no, but yeah.
No, I don't want the mediums. I do want the softs. Wasn't it?
Well, you're a Kings Lynn boy, you see. You understand this a lot better than I do.
Yeah.
I'll translate the Steve messages. We'll do that this afternoon. I think he wants the soft.
Yeah.
He should want the soft.
Marvellous. He's going well out front. Look at that. 8 seconds now. So
looks like this might be George Russell's first win in F1 today.
Sainz's drama's taken him out of the
He has not won a race yet in his career.
Could well be Russell v Hamilton.
But Mercedes, would they allow it to be?
Looks like today might be his first.
Would they say, gents, you've had a fine afternoon. Let's keep a 1-2. Do nothing silly.
They could say what they like to them, couldn't they? And while they're out there for the last 10 laps. Understood. Frustrated because he's held up behind Lando Norris.
Yeah. Could have been a very different race here for Charles Leclerc had Lando Norris not collided into him, ruining both of their races eventually. When you make a pit stop here, though, you've got to come out into clean air, into free air, because otherwise your pace can get severely affected.
Yeah. You go steaming around the outside of somebody in turn 6.
I'll make it turn 1, because I think Leclerc has steamed around the outside of Lando Norris, has finally got him.
Yeah. I was talking about the early lap where they made contact, but that's a high-risk move.
I think our races with Checo now. Yeah, we are looking to come back on Checo at the end of the race.
Let's head to Sky Race Control. Karun Chandok coming.
The follow-on from that conversation is they think Lewis is going to pit again, so they think they're racing both Lewis and Checo. Crofty, Lewis in DRS. If Carlos is 15 seconds behind Hamilton, if Lewis pits even now, he'll come out 7 behind. So that's where that race is for second place.
And this is the race on the track for second place. As it currently stands, Sergio Perez moves over to cover that inside line. Hamilton, well, he would have had to have gone the long way round, decided just to hold back for a moment and not make the move right there. But Perez is struggling so much for traction. Hamilton might find a little move through and a way through on this infield sector. We've seen overtaking moves into this corner here. Lorraine,
yeah, Lewis.
so far this weekend, but not on this occasion. Sergio Perez holds off Lewis Hamilton for that second place, and we move back on board now with Lewis Hamilton. No move down the inside. Perez jinks over to the right, doesn't he?
Hi, Winval.
Now we've seen Perez
how you doing?
the outside at Maguglia, where we are now.
You watching some F1 today?
For defense, Hamilton is being frustrated even more. Flat out now to the first corner. We're on board with Lewis Hamilton, and Perez trying to defend.
You're bored and hungry. And Lewis takes second. Now go catch George. Go catch a teammate now. It's a big gap.
Red Bull by itself is the fastest car along the straight, but that's no help if the car behind you's got a slipstream and the rear wing open. And that was enough, and the crowd love it. Their adopted driver, there's no Brazilians on the grid. They've decided they're cheering for Hamilton.
Honorary citizen, and getting plenty of salutes from the crowd on that one, as Charles Leclerc is told to come in and pit once more for what will be, a third time in this race. There he is. Max Verstappen goes up to 9th. Early contact with Lewis Hamilton. 5-second time penalty for Max Verstappen as a result of that collision. Leclerc was collided into by Lando Norris, who picked up a 5-second time penalty, but it's absolutely ruined his race here this afternoon, and he's trying to make amends and get back into the points. Meanwhile, there is Max Verstappen, and Lando Norris is the car ahead of him, currently in 8th place. There's overtakes wherever you look here, as you often get, A, at a track like Interlagos where you can get past, and B, when you've got a mixture, soft and medium compounds being thrown on by the different teams.
This track so often gives us a thriller, doesn't it? Just two long straights and a really tricky midfield that makes for a great combination.
So it is well worth the 2 hours stuck in traffic to get here and the 3 hours stuck in traffic to get out. Sort that one out, it could be our favourite race of the season, but when we get onto the track, boy is it good here. And Max Verstappen has pace advantage, doesn't he, over Lando Norris, who did say at this stage of the race he thought he might be struggling a bit because he hasn't felt 100%. He's not been well all weekend long. Bottas and Vettel both pit from 5th and from 7th. Norris pits too.
Lando Norris pits.
But he's got DRS, and he's got no one to overtake. As into the pits then comes Lando Norris. Verstappen goes up into 6th place. Alonso moves up into to 7th. Norris stops. I want to see where Bottas and Vettel come back out again. As Schumacher and Stroll go through. Bottas still ahead of Sebastian Vettel, and this is how Lewis Hamilton got past Sergio Perez.
Yeah, I think this will, a textbook move really down the outside, had the slipstream, had his rear wing open. Perez not getting silly about it, not smoking the brakes into the apex. So Red Bull now will be very much hoping there might be a safety car, because that would sort their race out for them a little bit, because at the moment in 3rd and 8th it's not really paying off, but a safety car would concertina this lot up.
Well, we've had one safety car period, we almost had another with a couple of incidents at the restart of that safety car. If you're a Sky Q or a Sky Glass customer, press your red button if you want to watch the highlights of this race alongside the live action. You can see why we had those that safety car. Oh, what's that? Zhou Guanyu slowing down, being lapped.
Yeah,
potentially, yeah.
Letting the leaders through, wasn't it?
It shows you there, Martin. We don't often see drivers getting lapped. Just how much time you lose when you have to get out of the way.
It's even worse than that, Crofty, because you run wide, you pick up a load of debris and marbles on your tyres, you lose a bit of tyre temperature, you could be the next 2 laps sorting it out. Like this.
Yeah. Right, Sergio Perez has been told to pit. medium tyres going.
All right, Sergio Perez pits.
This is where the crew can once again try and make a difference. Carlos Sainz is making his way along that main straight. Long time ago, he was told that the undercut was on and he'd be ahead of Sergio Perez.
So he'll be about 10 seconds ahead of Perez. But Perez, of course, with the fresher tyres, so the snakes and ladders kick in again.
Assuming, of course, Sainz can make it to the end of the race on those medium tyres that he's on. The top two, Russell and Hamilton, are the one of only, what, 4 cars now that have stopped only once in this race. We also have Lance Stroll, who hasn't stopped. Esteban Ocon was the other one, and he's just pitted. We're on board now with Charles Leclerc. Pierre Gasly is the car ahead of him. Leclerc has DRS. Not exactly blasting past straight away. Now the DRS, the extra 11 miles an hour. Pace advantage that you get kicks in. Leclerc's up into the point as Esteban Ocon now coming out of the pits. That's going to be quite level by the time they get to the bottom of the hill. And in now comes Lewis Hamilton. So Hamilton pitting, even though he went longer in his first stint, he now pits before George Russell.
So box, lap adjust.
My tyres are good, my tyres are good.
No, box.
Now is this covering off the Sergio Perez pit stop, and Lewis will have that explained to him?
Yeah, Lewis is very surprised by that because he felt he got good pace, good grip, but they're covering off at the end of the race. But look at that, he's going to end up behind Sainz.
Yeah, so Carlos Sainz goes through and up into second place. Hamilton now comes out onto the racetrack, and there is Sergio Perez in the distance. They couldn't leave it a lap longer, because if Hamilton had pitted, then Perez would have been ahead of him.
Yeah, no, the pit bull's got to overrule. They've got so much more knowledge than you of the rest of the race. So Lewis coming in and doing as he was told, and there's Max Verstappen doing the same with the only front runners have 2 brand new sets of those soft compound tyres.
Yeah, he didn't realise he'd need them to try and make the overtakes that he's having to make. That's George Russell now coming into the...
Remember, stream will be copyright claimed? I don't think it will, because my stream last year of the F1 finale didn't get copyright claimed, so I don't think it will. I really think the only reason my NASCAR streams get copyright claimed is because of the commercials. Like, is because of, like, the music that'll be played during commercial breaks. And since F1 doesn't have commercial breaks, I don't think it'll be an issue. Now, I definitely would get taken down if I were to be showing the race, but...
Well, here he goes, steaming.
Undercut. He's just done it. Softer tyre is faster throughout.
Steaming, but that's why they brought George Russell in at that particular moment. Same with Lewis Hamilton. You know, cover it off.
I think they'd have enough speed to get back past this Ferrari on those tyres at this stage, to be fair, but you don't want the risk or the challenge if you can help it. So, yeah, that is remarkably close, isn't it? But not close enough for Ferrari.
Well, 21 laps to go to this race. The soft tyre should last, should have a pace advantage between now and the end of the race. Still looking a bit murky, still looking very cloudy overhead. Might be a bit of rain in the air, you never know. George Russell has built up a healthy lead over Carlos Sainz, who has been pushing very hard for the last few laps, and has managed to get that gap down to, what, 2 seconds? It was under 1 second, but George just eking ahead on this particular lap. So, Russell from Sainz. Hamilton's just set the fastest lap of the race.
Some kind of lap as well. 14.1. That's extremely fast.
So Mercedes, I think, looking good here, Martin, for a 1-2, as we see Leclerc behind Sebastian Vettel. This is the battle for 7th place. Toto Wolff's not here this weekend. Hamilton once again seems to be the faster of the 2 Mercedes on the track, and he's got the gap down to about 7 seconds now.
Yeah, and Sainz has had those medium tyres on since half distance. They'll have no answer when Hamilton arrives on the scene.
What have you been doing without NASCAR? Well, I mean, up until this point, it really hasn't made much of a difference because there isn't, you know, NASCAR in the middle of the week anyway. But, yeah, now it's starting to suck because there would be NASCAR on now.
my current
So,
8th place.
I'm just gonna be watching the last few F1 races, and then I'll be watching the Suns.
For Alfa Romeo, for which the team are going to be investigated after the race.
But in the last week, I've just been playing a lot of F1.
What the stewards might think is a dangerous position.
I think the F1 games are more fun than the NASCAR games, but I think NASCAR is still better than F1.
Just squeezing into the 13s now, looking down the field. Right down the field, Verstappen in the 14s, and so is Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin.
Roberto Carlos, watching there from the pit lane exit by the Severeses, getting a great view.
World Cup. I don't think I'm going to be watching much of the World Cup. I think I'll watch. I'll definitely watch if U.S. gets into the finals. But other than that, I don't think I'll watch.
When he gets chance, because you're marooned in the middle there. There's no way out of there.
Is that why Fernando
Yellow flag in sectors 2 and 3. Lando Norris stopped on the track.
has come to a standstill in his McLaren. Through goes the leader, George Russell.
Could that be the safety car?
That could be a safety car.
Because that's a difficult. You've got to put people out to get that one off the road. They could use a virtual safety car. Can he just coax it off to the right and get it out of play?
It just needs pushing, doesn't it, onto the infield. And they're all standing by here in the pit lane to see if they can pick up a cheap pit stop, lose less time for their race if we get a virtual safety car or a safety car. Here's Charles Leclerc right behind now, Valtteri Bottas. There are yellow flags being waved where Lando Norris has stopped just on the exit of turn 10, Pico de Pato. The Dutch
No caution yet.
as it were. You'll see that McLaren right there.
Lando Norris getting out.
Come through, slow down, and then can speed up again.
Yeah, well, they will not send people out there until they're under some kind
Virtual
of
safety car.
Virtual safety car or safety car, which we've now got. They've got to cover it like that. Yeah, of course, that just keeps everybody in the same position. Then, of course.
Is that the fairest way to do it? We saw Lando getting out of the car.
Well, you just can't send people or vehicles out there, and you can't just leave the car. We don't do that in F1.
I mean, rather than get the safety car.
Yeah, and the better way for the race, for the spectacle, is the full safety car.
Fernando Alonso arrived on the scene at just the right time behind the virtual safety car to make a pit stop here, and that might just bring him out into still in the points as he makes his exit. Out in front, George Russell has a 5-second lead over Carlos Sainz, but I wonder if Carlos Sainz is going to come in, because this is a great opportunity for Ferrari, who probably needed another pit stop with Carlos Sainz, to lose less time for their race. He is coming in, Martin.
See, there's still 17 to go, and Mr. Kravitz awaits him.
The crucial thing for Alonso is if this turns into a full safety car, then he could end up challenging Checo Perez or Hamilton for actually getting close to the podium. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Carlos Sainz also taking the gamble. It's worth them to do it. It's the soft tyre, and still no chance that this is changing from anything from a virtual to an actual, though, is it, guys? Haven't seen that. Is Lando's car still out there?
I think as long as it'll go to neutral and they can roll it away, it should stay as a VSC, shouldn't it? But it's not in a treacherous place.
Let's have a listen.
He suddenly realised he might be able to get it down the service road. And I would imagine, I think it's probably hydraulics gone there, because the gear shift looked reluctant, to say the least.
They're struggling to move that car. Look, there's 3 marshals down there at the moment, and they're really struggling to move it. Good time as Lando Norris walks away to bring in Otmar Safnauer on the Alpine pit wall. Fernando Alonso came in. Was that a straightforward pit stop, just to lose less time behind the virtual safety car, Otmar?
Yeah, we're always planning to have him on new softs at the end, and the safety car came at the virtual car.
All right, there's the full safety car.
We got the safety car down.
Yeah,
safety car.
Which is what I thought might happen.
All right, this is going to make things interesting.
You've got another restart then, where your 2 drivers are going to be close to each other. They've done very well to drag your team back into this race. So what are you saying to them on the restart?
Well, like always, they need to have a clean restart. They're on fresh, soft tires now, and we need to be able to race our competition to the end.
Yeah, and both your McLaren's rivals are out of the race now, Otmar.
Yeah, that's the case, and yeah, we've suffered that in the past this year, and yeah, let's see what we can do. We have to score as many points as we can here.
And McLaren out. Your scoring points. We'll speak to you a little bit later on. Thanks ever so much indeed.
I'm going to go pee real quick.
To talk about in the next few moments, because this is going to be quite the restart.
Yeah, it is. And George knows how to do it because he had to be really late last time around, and before he scorched off down the pit straight, you don't want to be slipstreaming the pack behind you. But for George, having built an 11-second lead, it was the last thing he needed was a full safety car. And of course now, because the Tsunoda in 15th he'll be released anyway, so pretty much everybody will be on the lead lap.
So what are we doing? Are we racing or securing the 1-2? So you are racing, just be respectful.
Right, no team orders then. Racing to the flag. So we said about lap cars to get out of the way. When they do go racing, Russell's got 3 laps fresher tyres than Lewis Hamilton. From looking at the graphic when they came out of the pits, George Russell's tyres were 6 laps old. Lewis Hamilton's were 9 laps old when they put those tyres on. So of course they didn't have any new set of softs to put on. So Russell's got a slight advantage in that respect.
Yeah, and also he's the one who pulls the trigger for the restart, which is what we're seeing the earlier one here now. And this is where Hamilton and Verstappen got together and took chunks out of each other's cars. So I think George Russell may have been quite surprised to receive that message.
Yeah.
Actually, yes, I do. I think he'll be very surprised. They've got a 1-2 very much, I think, in the bag here. And so it's basically, right, visor down then. Suddenly, that's not another Mercedes. That's my main rival from today is now behind me.
But I get entirely what you're saying. However, when you've got a driver who has got 1 win in every season that he's competed in so far, and this might be his best chance, if not the last chance, to pick up that win for this season, how difficult is it to tell him, stay behind your teammate, please?
Well, it's we're not racing the stat book, are we? We're racing the Grand Prix. So, yeah, I mean, and of course, Lewis is entitled to go for it as well.
Well, Perez and Sainz have obviously pitted. Well, Sainz did very much. But is Lewis Hamilton right? Yes, those tyres went on more soon in terms of Carlos Sainz. But, Karun Chandok, Carlos Sainz, has he got better tyres or worse tyres?
Well, I can clarify, Crofty, because they've all got used tyres, apart from Perez on the new medium. So Russell's tyres have done 15 laps in total. Lewis's have done 13 laps in total. Sainz's tyres have done 8 laps in total. They all put on a used set for this final stint of the race. So, not a huge difference between Lewis and George, a couple of laps, but Sainz does have much fresher tyres.
So Sainz could be the one to watch out for when we get going here, but he's got Perez and Hamilton to get to before he gets to George Russell.
Oh, WinVal, guess what? My fog machine is broken again.
Sergio Perez, if the Red Bull can make progress.
Valtteri Bottas up there in 5th as well. Just going through that. Vettel having a strong day in 7th. Leclerc's finally made his way up into the top 6. Verstappen is still with one World Championship point position. Not that he needs any more championship points this year.
The one to watch as well, Alonso, because Ocon, Vettel, Leclerc, Bottas, I think all stopped before the safety car. So Alonso is looking at his tyre selection for this on a used set of soft tyres. 8 laps fresher than Esteban Ocon those tyres.
Yeah. So they haven't released the lap cars yet. This seems to be taking an age, doesn't it, for a car that pulled over on the side of the road and nearly into the lay-by. So that car is now cleared of Lando Norris. So now they've got to release the 2 cars. There's only one left now, isn't there? Between it's Alex Albon is going to be released behind.
Poor Lando.
Past George Russell, and then we got another lap before they get going.
So Fernando Alonso, so Lando Norris in the infield. He'll be finishing the race watching by the side of the track. His teammate Daniel Ricciardo causing an accident on the first lap where his car and Kevin Magnussen's has had to be moved away by the Marshals. The Marshals finally moving away, we think, that McLaren where it's lost power. Seems like a...
Why is the safety car not coming in now? I mean, the car is still ready for 2 laps.
We are still yet to allow lap cars past.
And the FIA will have software now. It wasn't the case last year to show who those lap cars are, and they've been told they can overtake Nicholas Latifi and Yuki Tsunoda. I was just going to mention thank you to all the marshals everywhere and to all FIA volunteers as well across all motorsport. This is Marshals and FIA Volunteers Weekend, isn't it? So those that give up their time freely and go to events worldwide, not just Formula One, but hill climbs and junior categories. Thanks for everything you do.
Couldn't agree more. It's fantastic what they do, and if it wasn't for those people, we wouldn't have motor racing at all.
And what a motor race we have had here, and in a few moments' time the safety car will come in, and it'll be Russell against Hamilton, against Perez, against Sainz. A 4-way battle potentially for the lead. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
But just remember that Lewis Hamilton radio message when he just wanted to stay out. He was wanting to give himself the best chance of winning the race, the best chance of overtaking George Russell. And that is the only way Lewis Hamilton is hardwired. He's relentless, isn't he? He's a mercenary when he's on the racetrack, and he is going to want to steal this win away. Well, not steal it, he's going to want to win this race from Russell.
2 seconds, Ted.
Fernando behind has a tyre advantage on us. Let's not focus on him. Let's make sure we concentrate on beating Vettel eventually. Let's make sure we let him through nice and cleanly, please.
Oh, that's a team order.
If you can confirm that, please, as well.
Let me race at the moment I win once the situation is settled a bit more. But we can lose everything now also at the restart.
Esteban, I don't want you fighting with Fernando. Is that understood?
I need to pass Vettel now. I won't fight Fernando.
That's fine. You can pass Vettel. I do not want you fighting Fernando, as long as that's clear.
What's up with Gasly?
Right, safety cars coming
or
in.
Whoever that is.
Yuki Tsunoda, I think, was he trying to unlap himself there, and that's why he had the...
It's Gasly.
Oh, sorry. No.
Is it Gasly?
Tsunoda.
Tsunoda, what's he doing? He's sort of, yeah, he's half unlapped himself. Now he's ended up in the middle of the pack.
And Josh Peckett, the race engineer, trying to plead with Esteban Ocon to do what the team want him to do. On the face of that, you can rather understand where some of the problems are coming from when it comes to Ocon and Alonso on the track, Martin.
But he's a feisty lad when there's a little switch behind his ear. Esteban Ocon, and when the crash helmet goes on, the switch goes
Alright,
down.
so we're going back green.
He's a different man. And he's out there fighting. He came up the hard way, did Esteban, through his racing career, and it seems to very much stick with him corner by corner, lap by lap, and why not to an extent.
Right, lap 59 of 71 here. We are close to the finish.
So we're going to have 12 laps to go.
A situation where he's still leading and has a restart to survive.
And also, of course, he's got a Mercedes behind him that could well get its rear wing open. The same performance car with its DRS and a slipstream. So he's very vulnerable at this stage as George Russell. And he's tried to get some temperature in everything. You're not allowed to go fast, brake hard, go fast, brake hard. So he needs to be careful on that. But because he caught the safety car back up, but he will go all the way down the pit straight. And then, unless he wants to try and surprise Lewis by going early, he'll go all the way down the pit straight. He does not want to slipstream his teammate down into turn one. Lewis is not allowed to go up alongside him.
Not. That's all changed from last year, of course. Won the sprint yesterday, George Russell.
Green flag.
Hamilton's won 103. Who's going to emerge edge on top here. Russell into turn 1.
Come on, Lewis. Oh, what the hell, Bottas?
Came from Valtteri Bottas and just about survived, but he's got to Esteban Ocon right on his tail. As down the Retro-Aposta we go now. Carlos Sainz using those fresher tyres to good advantage to try and get alongside Sergio Perez. Can't quite do it. Russell continues to lead from Hamilton and Perez. Then comes Sainz, then Leclerc. After him, Bottas. Then Ocon, Alonso, Vettel and Verstappen.
Yeah, Leclerc's very quickly cleared Bottas there, put himself right in the action for a potential podium.
Which he really wouldn't have thought of when he went into the barriers after Lando Norris made contact.
Thunder 135, Knicks 125. Winval, guess what happened? My fog machine broke again.
Very well indeed, and he's already nearly a second clear of his teammate. Sergio Perez on the medium tyre, stuck in the middle of all these soft tyre runners, is currently struggling a little bit. Fernando Alonso is now ahead of Esteban Ocon, and the two Alpines have kept away from each other, which is exactly what their team boss wanted. Now, we can get a slipstream. No DRS yet, but we can get a slipstream with Carlos Sainz, and that we're doing, and we're gaining on.
What the fuck did you do to it?
As towards turn 1 we go.
I didn't do anything to it. I think it stops. I think whatever heats it up stopped working. It's doing that thing again where it just pisses.
Through the curve of the soul. Perez ahead and in third place. Sainz coming at him, and there's Charles Leclerc waiting in the background.
Never seen a game that close and high. 145 to 135. Yeah, it's like 2K level.
Looking like he was struggling, getting the power down. We head towards Ferragiro. Bottas glad that he's got the inside line here, but Alonso goes round the outside anyway, and Fernando Alonso up into 6th place.
Yeah, very brave. He got the grip, Fernando, and just gritted his teeth and stayed around the outside there. Great driving. So Hamilton still parts of the lap he's within DRS, but other parts he's not. It's the critical detection zones that are in the exit zones of some corners. But at the moment, Russell's done everything he had to.
We saw that Valtteri Bottas lock-up on the restart, and I mentioned it. I think he's got a bit of a flat spot on his front left tyre. That won't be helping him. Medium tyres are not helping at the moment. Sergio Perez and Sebastian Vettel, who slipped down into 10th place. Max Verstappen ahead of him as Esteban Ocon at his sights. And we've seen Verstappen and Ocon come together before here at Interlagos when Ocon was trying to unlap himself a few years ago. Now we've got DRS down that back straight, and that will help Carlos Sainz, but Perez has it covered off.
Yeah, you don't get it for 2 laps after the start and after a safety car restart, of course, but Russell has got himself just, look at that, by 9,000ths of a second on that, at the top of your screen there, out of the DRS zone from Hamilton.
And he did it by setting the fastest lap of the race. Now this is Esteban Ocon, Sebastian Vettel to his right. Yuki Tsunoda kept out of the way. There's the lock-up from Valtteri Bottas, and Ocon.
You're having spaghetti right now?
Straight to the back of the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, he well to get that slowed down.
The unlinked space. Pop it. Oh, it was tight, wasn't it?
You've got to leave a car's width, and that looked like a car's width and nothing more, didn't it?
If it was a car's width, it was judged to perfection, but certainly the gap was closing, and Carlos Sainz would have been breathing in at that very moment. Here we go. He's lived to find another day in terms of an overtake. Perez has the inside covered off this occasion.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Sergio particularly needed to defend that one, but it's easy to say from up here.
Oh, look, he's pushing to the maximum. He's almost pushing into the rear wing of the Red Bull. Carlos Sainz up into the podium places, and now Charles Leclerc is swiftly on the scene. Perez maybe struggling a bit on these medium compound tyres. He hasn't got the pace of the cars around him as Valtteri Bottas loses a place to Esteban Ocon, drops down to 9th.
And Verstappen has passed the pair of them up into 7th.
And we can see what happened here with Max Verstappen and how he managed it. As DRS really helping here. There's Ocon, ahead of him Valtteri Bottas. Well, 2 picked off at the same corner. Nice.
Yeah, he's 8.7 seconds off the lead after all the trials and tribulations. And Leclerc was in the fence hard, wasn't he? He's 5 seconds off the lead.
Right, on board with Charles Leclerc this time around. Charles Leclerc is looking to go down the inside. Perez wanted to cover that off, but it was too late. The Ferrari was already on the scene. And what a rescue job this is for Ferrari. Now Sainz third, Leclerc fourth, Mercedes are 1 and 2. But that damage limitation act is in full flow here. Perez really starting to struggle in the battle for second place in the championship. He can't afford to lose many more places behind Charles Leclerc, who's his rival.
And Alonso, who looks like he's all over him.
Said watch out for Alonso, and we're watching out for Alonso. Might need to watch out for the man behind Fernando Alonso, and that's Max Verstappen. Meanwhile, out in front, 1.3 seconds the gap. In the last lap, middle sector, George Russell, very, very impressive, and he took himself out of any DRS threats. This has been quite the action since the restart. I do wonder why Yuki Tsunoda, who was kind of in the middle of the pile, and some of the top 6 had to fight their way through, wasn't completely allowed to unlap himself. Maybe we went a lap too early on that one. But that's another matter for another time.
He sort of was halfway house, wasn't it? He didn't go for it, but Hamilton now 1.3 behind Russell. And that's all it needs to be.
Oh, Perez now trying to fend off Fernando Alonso. Dive down to the left-hand side. Alonso saw him coming, wanted to go around the outside. Knows he's going to get decent traction. Out the curve of the soul. And with a bit of DRS down the Retroposta, he's got another chance. And look at the speed that the Alpine's got. Getting past Sergio Perez, who's tumbling down the order here. Out of the podium places. And now into 6th with Alonso up into the top 5.
And who's behind Perez? Max Verstappen catching him.
Well, Perez needs the points though, doesn't he? He's got the fight for the championship. Max Verstappen is already the champion. Will Red Bull tell Max just to hold station a bit? Because this is hurting Sergio Perez. With Leclerc 4th, Perez 6th. There's now 4 points difference between the two drivers in Leclerc's favour.
Yeah, I think Max will be... Yeah, I'll leave it with you to worry about that. I'm making my way through the pack. We'll see. I think he'll have so much speed. It's a non-issue anyway, frankly, because of the tyres he's got on it. But so Russell doing it. It's the middle sector of the lap where Russell's just edging a 10th here and there on Lewis Hamilton, and now Sainz is into the 1:13s as well.
So Sainz is starting to come back at Lewis Hamilton by about a 10th of a second on the last lap, but he's got 6 laps to go. Needs to increase his pace. He has done with a very good middle sector on the previous lap. But if he's going to make a move, he's going to make a move very quickly. Verstappen is making a move towards Sergio Perez, just on the wrong tyre to end off this race. And let's look at Fernando Alonso here. Wanted to go down the inside, no room there. He's switching around all over the place.
Yeah, he got the move done. Otherwise, I think the stewards would have been warning Sergio Perez there that you've made 2 moves. You're not allowed to do that.
That's what maybe has to get Leclerc.
Yes, baby. Right. Assuming for a second Fernando Alonso doesn't get Leclerc, and I know there's a big assumption. If Verstappen
F1 is boring, just dominant drivers, aka Lewis, Hamilton, and Max. Yeah, F1 is pretty boring, but I feel like today's race has been pretty good.
Okay, Max, go and take some points off Alonso.
My thing about F1 is that I just think the games are more fun than NASCAR, but NASCAR, like real life, is better than F1 real life.
Sergio Perez down the inside. Perez fights it with one hand tied behind.
Like F1 can be good.
He wasn't going to put up too much defence, and this might be the best way forward to see if his teammate can get Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, what sort of paces does he need then? He's only about 1.5 seconds adrift. So clearly,
I did see a few raindrops, but there's only a few laps to go, so I doubt anybody will switch to inters.
Max's tyres 5 laps fresher than Charles Leclerc. There is Pierre Gasly and Mick Schumacher swapping, trading, rubbing tyres as they go through turn 2. A bit of a front wing end plate disappearing off that AlphaTauri. The scrap down for 13th place. Meanwhile, out in front, George Russell, 1.2 seconds ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton. What was it, 1952?
In the last lap, you're together, just walk back.
1952, the last time in the Formula One World Championship that a British constructor or a British driver didn't win a race. Looks like God Save the King is coming for the first time in a Formula One Grand Prix. But will it be Russell or will it be Hamilton?
Hamilton took 2/10 out of him on the previous lap. Perez being told, look, so he obviously led him through. If he... That's for a podium, though. You can't take a podium off Carlos for the sake of second in the World Championship. I don't think that one should work. But Perez being said, let him through, and if he doesn't get Alonso or a Ferrari and your line astern, you will then be released.
I don't like this team orders shit.
George Russell going for his first Grand Prix win, 7-time world champion chasing it. So much calmness on the radio property. Just wants to know the gap, wants to know if he's free of DRS, and it's super calm on the radio.
Ted Kravitz standing in.
And the word from Mercedes, they are still free to race. Just quick one on Lando Norris. It was an electrical issue that caused the...
there you go.
Thanks ever so much. 3 laps to go. 1.1 second the difference in George Russell's favour. But it's worth pointing out once again, he's never been in this position. 3 laps to go and leading a Grand Prix. Might have won the sprint yesterday, but that was over 24 laps. This is strategic high-speed chess. And at the moment, he's got Lewis Hamilton in check, if not checkmate. What has Hamilton, who of course has been successful here 3 times in the past, has 103 wins to his name, got up his sleeve to try and get past his teammate, who in the middle sector, Martin Brundle, just seems to have that edge.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm cheering on Lewis here. Though it would be cool to see George Russell get his first win.
George resting his neck. This is a killer because of the long left-hander.
I just don't want Lewis to have a winless season.
Through the left-hand curves. But whatever he's got, it's fast enough at the moment.
As up the hill they rise one more time, and George Russell will be looking to his pit board to see another lap tick by to see what the advantage is over Lewis Hamilton, and it's round about a second and a half as Formula One World Champion at 72 and 74, Emerson Fittipaldi gets ready to wave that checkered flag in a couple of laps' time. Lewis Hamilton has won a race in his career by making a last lap pass. It was against Mercedes teammate Nico Rosberg in Austria in 2000.
I don't think he's going to be able to catch him.
It doesn't look like he's got anything in terms of that middle sector to get within DRS range to try and pull off a move here.
That Mercedes just looks so good, hasn't it? As soon as we hit race spec, it's just so obedient on the steering wheel. It just turns in beautifully, and the car rotates. They can hit the throttle hard. The engine, you can hear it really throaty because they've got so much rear grip. And this pair then, and this looks a bit reminiscent, doesn't it, of 2 or 3 years back, really. But at the moment,
all right, coming to the white flag.
Got the speed he needs.
Certainly has. Last win for Mercedes was the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix last season. Last 1-2 for Mercedes.
All right, white flag's in the air. One more time around for George Russell. See if he can get his first win.
2.67 miles to go. I don't know where Toto Wolff is watching this race today, the Mercedes team principal. He decided to have this one off. Whether he's got his feet up and he's chilled out at this moment, I'm not sure. He knows that his team are going to take the victory, but which one would it be? Whoever got the victory, would have been a great honour. But for George Russell, this moment is going to be so special in just a couple of seconds' time.
And it is, and he deserves it. He's handled a beautiful start.
Please think about this, every point.
You can't take a podium off your teammate for that. So, every start, every restart, everything about it, and now in this big fight at the end with Hamilton.
We believe it's too risky. Good shot.
Well, Leclerc is going to carry on that argument with Ferrari, but there is no argument, I think,
all right,
about who has been the star.
There it is.
On the track, Kevin Magnussen, brilliant pole for Haas. Fantastic win in the sprint for George Russell.
George Russell is going to get his first career Formula One World Championship win.
And in his first season for Mercedes,
George Russell wins it.
Yesterday wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix on a Sunday. It's a 1-2 Mercedes. It's gorgeous for George. It's absolutely wonderful for the Constructors' Champions who've had such a lean season. Red Bull have slashed their trophy off them, but they get that victory that they have been waiting for. Russell wins by a second and a half from his teammate. Take a bow, George Russell. Finally, a Grand Prix winner and the 113th driver to do so.
Yeah.
George, what the fuck?
Well deserved. He's been threatening to do that. He nearly did that very first time he stepped in, didn't he, for Lewis in Bahrain. It was all taken away from him. He's had some incidents, has a big shunt, but he's been there. He's got a self-confidence. I tried my very best, but finally, a Kings Lynn driver wins a Grand Prix.
As I said, it's Kings Lynn against
George Russell. You are a Formula One race winner.
Unbelievable! This is just the beginning, guys. This is just the beginning. So proud of all of you.
As I said earlier, second round of the FA Cup, it's Kings Lynn against Stevenage Borough. I think it's Kings Lynn 1, Stevenage 0 before that match kicks off. And I'm really glad Kings Lynn have finally got a Grand Prix win to their name, Martin Brundle.
So much. And he fully deserves it. That was an outstanding weekend of racing. Just aced it all the way through. And all of the challenges.
Lewis Hamilton got driver of the day.
He had an answer for it, including an on-form Lewis Hamilton.
Nice work, Lewis. What an awesome weekend. A great team result, 1-2.
Congratulations to the team. Thank you so much for your consistent efforts. This is an amazing result for everybody. Congratulations to George. Really so happy for everybody.
Yeah, fantastic recovery, Lewis. Brilliant job. See you at the podium. Really well done. Another strong drive today.
Brilliant drive.
Toto managed to find a team radio to dial into and give his congratulations. Now let's clear a few things up. Pierre Gasly's got a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. He wasn't in the points anyway.
I knew we could do this. I knew it. I need some tissues and cry, boys.
To the pit lane. To the pit lane.
You're not crying, George. We are. And I think this is a very, very popular win for a young man who has an immense talent and can stand on top of his cockpit as a Grand Prix winner now. Let the stats show that maiden victory in the Grand Prix is here today. Carlos Sainz finished third ahead of Charles Leclerc. Leclerc wanted to be let past in terms of the position for the championship with Sergio Perez. Didn't happen with Ferrari, didn't happen at Red Bull either. Verstappen didn't let Sergio Perez past. As George Russell celebrates, Fernando Alonso came home 5th, Verstappen 6th and Perez 7th. Ocon 8th, then Bottas and Stroll, who got his teammate Sebastian Vettel on the last lap too.
Max Verstappen refused to hand the place back to Sergio Perez and says on the radio, "Do not ask me again, I gave you my reasons." I think that might be to do with Monaco.
When Sergio Perez crashed and denied Max Verstappen a pole position by bringing out the red flag, and there was a theory that Sergio's accident wasn't quite the misfortune on that particular afternoon. Fortune or whatever for George Russell, well, it was just brilliant and smooth and calm, kept his head throughout. Brilliant battle with Max Verstappen in the sprint yesterday to put his Mercedes further ahead than the Red Bull to start in P1 today. Lewis Hamilton led this Grand Prix, but in truth, Martin Brundle never looked like winning the Grand Prix. This was George's. Despite a couple of safety cars and the field coming together again, this always looked like George's win today.
Oh, he did, because he had the 10-second lead, didn't he? Where obviously Lewis got together with Max, and that scuffle put him out of, and he had to pass quite a lot of cars to Lewis at that point. But somehow the cream always rises to the top, and you
I want to see them go into the cool-down room.
When the prizes are handed out, you know, look at Sainz and Leclerc and Alonso coming through and making it count when it mattered. But Russell had it covered. I think even just winning yesterday, that the sprint race broke the ice for him. That psychological I can beat this lot.
Carlos, it was definitely an amazing race from you here in Interlagos. Everything's always happened here, you know. Sometimes the result is always different from what I expected at the beginning. How was the race? And especially at the end, really good pace, good tires to get the possibility to be on the podium.
Yeah, I think overall it was a good race. We did have some problems there at the start with the brakes on fire. We had to stop early, which meant we had to commit to a 3-stop that maybe today wasn't the fastest given the degradation. But from there I pushed flat out to try and catch back on Checo. We had a good run on Checo at the end. Good podium after starting P7. Yeah, I think we can be happy with that. It's a shame that Merck are so quick, but congratulations to George.
Okay, and the fight for the second position, the construction, how you think for the last race, how it's going to be?
We're clearly on a bit of a defense mode because Merck were untouchable today. They were just simply the quickest car, quicker than the Red Bull, quicker than us. I think it's been a few weekends like that, so in Abu Dhabi we need to expect them to win, and we need to either do damage limitation or go for the win ourselves also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lewis, you feel a little bit Brazilian now. Huh? Amazing race, driver of the day, so congratulations for your really, really good job. Having a little bit of trouble at the beginning, so how you think it was that contact with Max, and also after amazing race you did?
Yeah, well, firstly, I got to say huge congratulations to George. What an amazing drive he did today. He did amazing qualifying yesterday, so he truly deserves it. To my team, so proud of everyone back at the factory. And here, this is an
Mute it, Sam. F1 theme played. I don't think they care.
To get a win.
Hello, Jaden. You missed the entire stream.
What can I say? You know how it is.
George Russell gets his first career win.
Everyone that every overtaking we're doing, the whole grandstand, we support you massively. So I think that.
Muito obrigado. Big thank you to everyone here in Brazil. I've really had one of the best weeks of my life here. Just with how.
Jaden, guess what? My fog machine broke again.
Yeah, excited to come back here again, and hopefully some holidays in future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Again.
I understand how is the feeling of the first victory. Really congratulations. Yesterday I told you it's the first of many, and today you did an amazing job. So just tell how you feel and the pace of your car. You know,
Sounds like I need a completely different one. Probably.
What an amazing feeling. Just a huge thank you to the whole team for making this possible. It's been an emotional roller coaster this season. This race was a really tough race. I felt in control. Lewis was super fast, and then when I saw the safety car, I thought, oh Jesus, this is going to be a really difficult end. And you know, he put me under so much pressure, but so happy to go away with the victory.
And how is the feeling? I mean, remember all your career, everything you passed through, starting from the karting, all of the, championships that you fight, and you arrive here in an amazing season you are doing, really an amazing season, with a team that didn't start so well, and now you guys show the pace to win, and I think that's a really important thing, and especially the first victory is yours.
Yeah, I'm speechless, on the in-lap, all of these memories sort of come flooding back, and starting off with my mum and dad in go-karting and going through, and all the support I've had from the rest of my family, my girlfriend, my trainer, my manager. I mean, obviously, the likes of Gwen, who gave me the opportunity to get on the program with Mercedes, and Jane Vowles, and Toad. The list is endless. I can't thank enough, and yeah, super proud.
Enjoy your moment, and really congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And on the track, where in 2017 for Force India he made his F1 debut at a race weekend, he completed 29 laps. Today, some 5 years later on, he's completed 71 laps and will stand on the top of the podium.
Yeah, you forget it. They look so fresh and they seem so recent into Formula One. Then, 5 years ago he was doing pre-practice sessions, but that's, the kind of seat time you need to be able to deliver a performance like George has delivered today.
Let's just hear a bit of Max Verstappen, I think, on the team radio.
Max, let Checo through, please. Max, what happened?
I told you already last time. You guys don't ask that again to me. Okay? Are we clear about that? I gave my reasons, and I stand by it.
Now, that's the exchange between Max Verstappen and Giampiero Lambiase, his race engineer. Max going against the team's wishes. And we've discussed that already. I'm sure we'll discuss it more after the race as well. But Verstappen clearly not in the mood to be helping Sergio Perez out. And as a result, Perez and Leclerc tied on 290 points. Leclerc ahead by virtue of having won more races in 2022.
That's a very powerful radio message from Max Verstappen. That is, I'm in charge around here.
Damn right.
All the shots.
Whether that is the case or not, I don't know, but certainly Max feels that he is able to say that.
Yeah, because of, I'm pretty sure that goes back to Monaco.
Lewis Hamilton watching some replays of this race, waiting for his teammate and for Carlos Sainz, who definitely on the podium. The stewards were looking at a potential safety car infringement, but no investigation necessary in that one. Meanwhile, outside on the grid, the Paulistas are in the mood for celebration. And I hope George Russell's talking to his mum and dad.
All right, y'all. I'm going to end this here.